Kale's small hands shook as he crawled through the jagged wreckage of the moon's crater. Smoke rose in thick, gray clouds, and the ground vibrated beneath his knees with every distant explosion. Alien drones hovered above, scanning for survivors, their red sensors cutting through the fog like knives. Kale's heart pounded, but he refused to stop. Somewhere under the debris he knew there were people still alive. A sudden roar froze him mid-crawl. The ground quaked so violently that dust and metal shards rained down around him. Kale looked up and froze again. From the smoke and fire, a massive shape emerged. Scales darker than the night sky, eyes glowing like molten gold, wings larger than any starship Kale had ever seen. The galaxy's deadliest dragon, Oblivion, stood before him, its mouth opening in a roar that could melt stone. Kale's stomach twisted, and yet even in terror, his mind worked faster than the fear. He couldn't run, there was nowhere to hide. The dragon's eyes swept the crater floor, landing on him. Time slowed. The roar faded, but the vibrations didn't stop. Kale's chest ached with fear, but he clenched his fists and forced himself to stand. "Hey," he said, his voice barely audible over the trembling air. "I'm not afraid." The dragon's head tilted. Smoke curled from its nostrils. The drones above hesitated mid-flight. The aliens had not expected this. Kale's small figure, unprotected and vulnerable, had done the impossible, captured the dragon's attention without screaming or running. He took a careful step forward. 1, 2. The dragon's tail lashed, sending a cloud of dust swirling around him, yet it did not strike. Kale's pulse raced. He could feel every beat in his throat. His hand went out slowly, trembling, palm open. The scales shimmered under his fingers as he touched the dragon's snout. It was hotter than lava, but alive in a way he had never felt before. Alive but not angry. "See? I'm not your enemy," Kale whispered. He pressed his lips briefly to the dragon's forehead, a gesture of trust that he barely understood himself. For a long moment nothing happened. Then the impossible occurred. Oblivion froze, head lowered slightly. Its eyes softened, no longer molten fire but curious amber, watching him with something almost like respect. Kale's chest rose and fell. He had done it. Somehow, a human child had stopped the deadliest creature in the galaxy. He looked toward the drones above, still hovering, unmoving. The aliens aboard the ships must have been staring too, unsure if they should attack or retreat. Kale's small act had shifted the balance and he knew it. But the relief was short-lived. A sharp whistle cut through the air, closer than he expected. A drone broke formation, scanning more aggressively than before. Kale's mind snapped into action. He grabbed a chunk of twisted metal from the wreckage and hurled it. It struck the drone's sensor, sparking and wobbling. Oblivion flinched, then roared, louder, stronger, but not at him. At the drone. Its roar sent the machine tumbling, sparks flying. Kale grinned, heart pounding, and ducked behind a shard of broken hull. For a moment he felt the power of being alive, of being clever, of surviving. He had faced death and not only lived, he had impressed a creature thought unstoppable. Yet the tension didn't fade. The other drones were circling, recalculating. The alien warships above had not fired, but Kale could see the red glints of targeting arrays sweeping the crater. Oblivion's wings unfurled, stretching wider than the sky itself. Dust swirled around them. Kale realized that the dragon was aware of his presence. Not just aware but protective. It nudged him gently with its massive snout, a warning to stay low. Kale's stomach twisted with a mix of fear and awe. He had never felt such a weight of responsibility. The lives under that smoke, the small human settlements across the system, they depended on him now, even in ways he couldn't yet imagine. Then something strange happened. The dragon's roar changed, higher, almost musical, a vibration that made Kale's bones hum. The drones faltered mid-flight. The red scanning lights flickered. Kale's mind raced. Could it be responding to him, or to something else he couldn't understand? He swallowed hard, keeping his eyes on Oblivion, knowing that one wrong move could end him in an instant. Kale made another move. He stepped closer, tilting his head to look into the dragon's glowing eyes. "I'm your friend," he said, barely louder than a whisper. "I want to help." The dragon's head lowered further. Its massive wings flared, a shadow swallowing part of the crater. Then, with a deliberate motion, it leaned closer. Kale felt heat wash over him, not from danger, but from power, from something alive and immense. The air crackled. Even the aliens above froze in shock. And then, as Kale reached out again, the dragon's massive eyes snapped toward the horizon. Something was coming. Faster than he could imagine. Kale's heart leapt. Whatever it was, it wasn't friendly. The aliens had more tricks. Or worse, something entirely new. Kale froze, hand still on Oblivion's snout. He looked up, eyes wide. The dragon shivered slightly, nostrils flaring, tail lashing like a whip. Something unseen was approaching fast. The sky grew darker in a swirl of smoke and shadow. Kale's mind raced, but one thing was clear. This was only the beginning. And in that instant, Kale realized that his courage had not only saved him, it had awakened something ancient, something alive, and now, together, they would face a danger no one had expected. The shadow above grew faster, moving like a living storm. Kale's stomach dropped as he saw its shape, another dragon, but larger, armored in black scales that shimmered like sharpened obsidian. Its eyes glowed crimson, a predator's fire, and it circled the crater, scanning for signs of weakness. Oblivion hissed low in his throat, wings flaring, tail lashing, the air vibrating with raw power. Kale grabbed a shard of hull to steady himself, heart pounding. "They're not like you," Kale whispered to Oblivion, voice trembling. "They won't listen to anything." Oblivion growled, a deep, rolling sound that rattled Kale's chest. The child realized they had no time to hide. The alien drones were still circling, and now, this monstrous shadow made them look small. Every instinct screamed to run, but Kale's mind worked faster than fear. He scanned the debris, noticing broken cables from the destroyed alien ships. Sparks still jumped from the frayed wires. An idea formed, small but daring. He grabbed a dangling cable and dragged it toward a mound of wreckage. Oblivion's head followed his movements, watching, alert. Kale's fingers were raw and bleeding from the sharp metal, but he didn't stop. He tied the cable around a shard of hull and yanked it tight, creating a makeshift trap. "Stay close," he said, stepping back, keeping one eye on the shadow. "This is going to hurt, but it might slow it down." The black dragon swooped down, claws tearing into the crater floor. Oblivion roared, rising to meet it. The two dragons clashed, wings smashing against each other, sparks and debris flying like a violent storm. Kale crouched low, hiding behind his trap. He could see the black dragon's massive jaws snapping, aiming for Oblivion, but the child's quick thinking had placed the cable where the shadow's footfall would catch it. With a sharp, metallic snap, the cable hooked the black dragon's leg. It stumbled, spinning uncontrollably, and for a moment the balance of the battle shifted. Oblivion lunged, not to kill but to drive the intruder away. Kale's heart raced. He had done something humans shouldn't have been able to do, but the payoff was immediate. The black dragon staggered, wings flaring, then took to the sky again, momentarily retreating. Kale exhaled, chest heaving. His fingers were scorched from the sparks, cuts running across his palms, but the momentary victory gave him courage. He looked up at Oblivion, who lowered its head and nudged him gently. The dragon seemed almost proud, as if acknowledging the child's bravery. Kale smiled weakly, though he knew the danger wasn't over. From above, the alien warships shifted their focus. Lasers screamed across the crater, slicing through debris. Kale dove behind a shard of metal just in time, feeling heat singe his hair. The drones hadn't given up. He realized something chilling: the aliens were learning, adapting. Every action they took now was faster, smarter, more precise. Kale's mind raced. He needed another plan. He saw a broken energy canister nearby, still sparking. If he could roll it down the crater toward the drones, it might create a distraction, or better, a trap. Kale grabbed it, dragging it across the jagged ground, oblivious to the sparks biting at his clothes. Oblivion shifted closer, wings brushing the ground, providing cover from laser fire. "Almost there," Kale whispered, setting the canister behind a mound. With a push, it rolled, hitting the first drone. Sparks exploded in a bright arc, blinding the other drones momentarily. Oblivion surged forward, using the distraction to swipe them from the air. Kale ducked, heart hammering, as pieces of alien tech fell around him. For a small moment, he felt the exhilaration of control, of turning the tide despite impossible odds. But then a deeper, colder rumble shook the crater. The black dragon returned, faster this time, and it wasn't alone. Smaller shadowy figures followed, alien-engineered beasts, circling like predators hungry for chaos. Kale froze. He realized that his actions, though brave, had escalated the battle. He had drawn their attention, and now the odds were far worse. "Oblivion!" he shouted, voice rising above the roar and the lasers. "We need a plan. We can't fight them all." The dragon paused, eyes meeting his. Then, with a low growl, it moved toward him. Kale understood. It wanted him to lead, to think. The dragon would follow, but he had to act first. Sweat ran down his face, dirt streaking his cheeks. He looked at the crater floor, spotting jagged metal, broken ship parts, and unstable alien tech. If he could create another chain reaction, something clever, fast, and precise, they might survive. Kale grabbed a metal shard with one hand and pressed it against a glowing conduit. Sparks flew. He shouted to Oblivion, pointing toward a wall of debris. The dragon roared, and with perfect timing, Kale kicked the shard. It slid across the ground, hitting the conduit just as the black dragon lunged. A flash of energy surged, knocking the intruder backward and sending the smaller beast scattering. Kale stumbled, catching his breath. The drones retreated momentarily, and the black dragon screeched in frustration. Oblivion nudged Kale, wings folding slightly, tail brushing the ground like a shield. The child realized something incredible. His courage, quick thinking, and willingness to act, even against creatures far larger and more powerful than him, had bought them a chance. But the victory was fragile. Above the crater, another shadow darkened the sky, larger, faster, more menacing than anything Kale had seen. His stomach tightened. Oblivion stiffened, wings unfurling, scales gleaming with tension. Kale's hand went to the dragon again, instinctively feeling the heat, the power, the intelligence beneath those massive scales. "Whatever comes next," he whispered, eyes wide, "we face it together." And then the shadow split into two, revealing shapes that glinted with alien metal, faster than thought. Kale froze. Oblivion hissed, the ground shaking with the roar of coming danger. The viewer is left asking, what are those? Can a human child and a dragon survive against this new threat? Kale's stomach knotted as the two massive alien entities descended, their wings slicing the air with a sharp hum that made the crater tremble. They weren't dragons, at least not like Oblivion. Their bodies were armored, segmented like living machines, and their eyes glowed cold crimson. Kale pressed himself against the jagged hull, sweat stinging his eyes. Every instinct screamed to run, but there was nowhere to go. He had to think. Oblivion's massive head lowered beside him, scales brushing his shoulder. The dragon's deep rumble vibrated through Kale's chest, a warning and a reassurance all at once. The child's mind raced. There had to be a way. He remembered the alien weapon, the massive energy conduits left half destroyed from the earlier drones. They were unstable, glowing with dangerous power. Kale's sharp eyes spotted a pattern. The two new intruders were fast, but they moved in predictable arcs. If he could lure them close enough, he could use the conduits against them. "Oblivion," he whispered, gripping the dragon's snout. "I need you to trust me again. Just a little longer." The dragon tilted its head, eyes narrowing. Kale sensed understanding. The bond was real now, not fear, not instinct, but a connection. He climbed onto Oblivion's back, feeling the heat of his scales and the raw power under his hands. Together they rose slightly, staying just out of reach of the alien weapons. Kale pointed toward the energy conduits. "We can trap them. Follow my lead." Oblivion surged forward, wings beating in a controlled lift, keeping Kale steady on his back. Kale shouted commands as they swooped around the debris, dodging lasers and claws. With precise timing, he nudged Oblivion to push one intruder toward the first conduit. Sparks arced, energy flared, and the alien screeched as it collided with the blast. A small victory but fleeting, the other intruder adjusted, circling with terrifying speed. Kale's heart hammered. He needed more. He glanced around the crater, noting every piece of alien tech, every jagged metal edge, every glowing fissure. Then it hit him. Oblivion had responded to his earlier act of trust. What if the dragon could amplify the effect, focus the energy like he had imagined in his head? Kale's hands flew over the dragon's scales, pressing in patterns, guiding its motion. At first nothing happened. Kale's chest ached, fear gnawing at him. The intruder lunged. Then, as if sensing the child's intent, Oblivion's massive wings flared wider, and the air around them crackled. Energy from the conduits reacted to the dragon's scales, forming a shimmering, invisible barrier. The alien screeched again, stunned, unable to move forward. Kale felt a surge of triumph, but he didn't let it slow him. This was only the first step. The second intruder dove straight at him. Kale's mind raced. He knew he couldn't fight it head-on. Instead, he used a clever trick. He drew the alien toward a cluster of half-collapsed hull and debris. Oblivion followed his motion, nudging the intruder with precise bursts of wing and tail. Kale pressed a jagged piece of metal into a conduit at the exact moment the alien passed, sending a surge of energy that knocked it off course. Sparks exploded in the air, illuminating the crater in harsh white light. Kale stumbled, heart pounding. He had done it. Two monsters taken down by a child riding a dragon. But the momentary victory brought an even stranger realization. The aliens weren't mindless, they were reacting to him. The pattern of their attacks changed, almost as if they were learning. Kale's eyes widened. They weren't just opponents, they were calculating, adapting, predicting his moves. Oblivion, Kale said, voice urgent. They're watching us. Learning us. We have to be smarter than them. The dragon growled low, wings shifting to a defensive stance. Kale's mind snapped into action. He needed a new plan, something no alien could anticipate. He scanned the wreckage and noticed something strange. One of the alien devices still hummed, but faintly, emitting pulses that matched the black dragon's heartbeat. Kale's pulse quickened. Could this be the link? The key to controlling or understanding them? He risked a step closer, hand shaking, touching the pulsing device. Energy raced through his fingers, sharp and dangerous, but he focused, thinking like a human always does, problem-solving. With careful precision, he nudged the device toward Oblivion's path. The dragon sensed it immediately, brushing against it with his massive snout. A shockwave of energy rippled outward, stunning the remaining intruder and all drones in the crater for a split second. Kale felt a thrill unlike anything before. This was it. A human mind, paired with courage and empathy, had turned the tide against creatures far stronger than him. He realized the truth, staring into Oblivion's amber eyes. The dragon responded not to force but to trust. A human's small act of compassion, paired with quick thinking and courage, could control what no one else could. But just as the child's grin spread across his dirt-streaked face, a louder rumble shook the crater. Kale's stomach lurched. Something massive, something unseen, was moving beneath the surface. Oblivion stiffened, nostrils flaring, tail lashing violently. The shadows shifted again, not above but below. Kale's heart sank. The creatures they had just fought were only the first wave. Something far older, far more dangerous was awake. Kale clutched Oblivion's scales tighter. He realized this fight was only the beginning. The galaxy's deadliest dragon had paused for him once, but now, together, they faced a threat neither had expected. The viewer is left asking, what is moving below? How will Kale and Oblivion survive something far larger than all they've faced? The crater trembled beneath Kale's feet, cracking along jagged lines as if the moon itself were splitting apart. Oblivion growled low, wings bristling with tension. From the fissure emerged a shape so massive that it blotted out the pale light of the distant sun. A creature larger than any starship, scales darker than Oblivion's, with eyes that burned with the heat of a supernova. Its roar shook the air, a sound so deep that Kale's bones rattled, and for the first time he truly feared the end. But fear was fleeting. Kale's gaze hardened. He had faced impossible odds before, and he had survived because he had acted, thought, and trusted. This was no different. He climbed onto Oblivion's massive neck, hands gripping the heat-radiating scales. His small voice called out, firm despite the quiver of adrenaline. We stop it. Together. Oblivion's wings unfurled in a mighty sweep, kicking up a whirlwind of dust and debris. The colossal creature, the ancient horror, surged forward, claws gouging the crater floor, sending boulders flying. Kale's stomach lurched, but he focused. He scanned the battlefield. The alien warships were still hovering, hesitant, and the remaining drones were circling at a distance. Everything depended on their next move. Kale spotted a narrow ridge above the fissure, a precarious ledge lined with unstable alien tech left from the earlier skirmishes. An idea sparked. If he could lure the ancient horror toward the ridge and trigger a chain reaction with the energy conduits, they might survive. But it would require absolute precision, and courage beyond his years. Oblivion! Kale shouted. We go now. Follow my lead. The dragon surged forward, faster than the eye could follow, dodging debris and claws. Kale clung tight, nerves screaming, heart hammering. The ancient horror's claws tore through the ground, leaving deep gashes. Kale realized the creature was intelligent, calculating, reacting to every move. Every misstep could end them. He raised a hand and pointed toward the ridge. Oblivion pivoted midair, landing atop a jagged rock formation. Kale leaped off the dragon's back at the last moment, landing on a stable section of the ridge. Sparks flew from exposed conduits nearby, illuminating his determined face. The ancient horror's eyes fixed on him, jaws opening wide enough to swallow a small building. Kale didn't flinch. He ran along the ridge, leading the massive creature toward the unstable energy conduits. His feet slipped over rubble, but he kept moving, calculating each step. Oblivion swooped close behind, tail swiping, keeping the creature focused on them both rather than on Kale's weak points. Just a little closer, Kale muttered, voice steady, hands reaching for the final conduit. He could feel the heat, the energy thrumming like a living heartbeat under his fingertips. This was it, one wrong move and everything would be obliterated. The ancient horror lunged, its claws scraping the ridge where Kale stood. He rolled aside, narrowly avoiding death, and with a powerful shove, tipped the conduit toward the fissure. Sparks erupted, electricity arcing violently. The ground shuddered as the energy chain reaction surged through the ridge. Kale ducked behind a jagged rock just as the ancient horror screeched, claws searing the ground, caught in the surging energy. Oblivion circled overhead, wings catching the shock waves, using the momentum to strike the ancient horror repeatedly, precise, non-lethal blows that drove it toward the fissure. Kale's mind raced, heart hammering, calculating timing, distance, and impact. He had one chance. One move. He shouted to Oblivion, now. Push it. The dragon lunged with all its power, nudging the creature directly into the unstable ridge. Energy arcs struck the ancient horror, binding its limbs with shimmering force. The ground trembled violently and boulders, sparks, and smoke erupted in every direction. Kale held his position, gripping the ridge, watching with wide eyes as the creature struggled. Its roar was deafening, but the human and dragon teamwork held firm. A final, desperate lunge from the ancient horror sent a shockwave through the crater, hurling Kale off balance. He tumbled, landing hard but alive, dirt and blood streaking his face. Oblivion dove, snatching him up mid-fall, wings beating furiously. Kale clung tight, chest heaving, heart pounding in a rhythm that matched the dragon's. From above, the alien warships hesitated, unsure if they should intervene. Drones that had once seemed unstoppable now hovered, their red sensors flickering. Kale realized the truth. His courage, his quick thinking, his unwillingness to give in, these were things the aliens could not predict, could not replicate. Humans were unpredictable. Humans could shine even in the darkest, deadliest moments. The ancient horror let out a final, earth-shaking roar as it was forced into the fissure, energy arcs binding it. Dust and smoke filled the air. Oblivion landed beside Kale, wings folding, scales still glowing faintly from the energy discharge. The child's chest rose and fell rapidly, every nerve tingling with adrenaline and relief. He had survived. They had survived. Kale slid off Oblivion's back, knees hitting the ground. He looked at the dragon, dirt and sweat mixing on his face, and felt something he had never felt before, absolute respect and connection. "We did it," he whispered. The dragon nudged him gently, almost as if acknowledging the truth in his words. But the victory was fragile. From the distant horizon, a faint glimmer of movement caught Kale's eye. Shadows flickered across the craters beyond, shapes too fast, too coordinated. Something was watching, waiting, and judging. Kale's stomach tightened again. He realized that the ancient horror might be defeated, but the war, and the mysteries of the galaxy, was far from over. He climbed onto Oblivion's back once more, gripping his scales tightly. "Whatever comes next," Kale said, voice steady despite the exhaustion and fear, "we face it together." Above, the alien warships remained silent, drones inactive. For the first time, Kale understood that courage, intelligence, and empathy, human qualities, had turned the tide in the galaxy's deadliest battle. But the lingering movement on the horizon reminded him. The universe still had more challenges, more monsters, and more mysteries waiting. And somewhere, in the darkness beyond the crater, a new threat stirred, watching the human child and his dragon, curiosity and danger both alive in its alien gaze. Kale's knees ached and his arms trembled, but he kept his hands on Oblivion's scales. The dragon's body heaved, massive wings folding as the dust and smoke settled around the crater. The ancient horror had been driven back into the fissure, bound by the unstable energy conduits, and for a moment, silence reigned. Kale exhaled, lungs burning, heart still racing. He looked around at the devastation, the jagged wreckage of alien ships, scorched ground, and twisted metal scattered like toys. Yet in the midst of it all, the human settlements in the distance remained untouched, hidden behind natural ridges. Kale realized, with a surge of pride and exhaustion, that his courage had saved lives. A small human child, unarmed and vulnerable, had faced the deadliest creatures in the galaxy, and survived. Oblivion nudged him gently, lowering his massive head so Kale could climb down from his back. The dragon's amber eyes met his, warm and intelligent. Kale pressed a hand to the dragon's snout, feeling the heat radiating like a living furnace. "We did it," he whispered, voice hoarse but steady. "We really did it." The dragon rumbled softly, a vibration that Kale felt in his chest. He understood the meaning. trust, respect, and partnership. He had proven that humans, even the smallest among them, could face impossible odds with courage and intelligence. Kale glanced at the alien drones scattered around the crater. Many were damaged, sparks flying, unable to function. Some hovered silently, their sensors flickering as if trying to comprehend what had just happened. Kale's lips curved into a small, victorious smile. He had not only survived, he had outsmarted creatures designed to be perfect hunters. Humans, fragile, small, unpredictable, had won through intelligence, bravery, and empathy. He thought of the moments that had brought him here. The first roar, the leap onto Oblivion's back, guiding the dragon through the energy conduits, and the final push that sent the ancient horror back into the fissure. Each step had been dangerous, impossible even, but his courage had made a difference. Kale felt the weight of that truth settle in his chest. He had acted, and lives had been spared because of it. A faint whirring drew his attention upward. The alien warships lingered at the edge of the crater, hesitant now, unsure of how to proceed. Kale raised a hand instinctively, speaking aloud even though he knew the ships could not understand him. "We don't want to fight anymore. Go home. Leave us be." The ships hesitated, then slowly retreated, their lights fading into the darkness of space. Kale's chest heaved with relief, and he allowed himself a small laugh, shaky but full of triumph. He had survived, and the galaxy had witnessed a human child's courage. Oblivion rumbled, nudging Kale toward the fissure. Kale approached cautiously, peering into the gap where the ancient horror had been. Energy arcs still flickered, pulsating as the creature struggled weakly beneath them. Kale's stomach tightened, but he knew the fight was over, for now. Oblivion had held the creature at bay. The humans and their settlements were safe. Kale climbed onto a ridge, looking out across the crater. The smoke began to clear, revealing the stars above. The galaxy stretched endlessly in every direction, full of dangers and mysteries. Kale realized that this battle, though enormous, was only a fragment of what lay ahead. But he felt something else too: hope. The knowledge that courage, intelligence, and compassion, even in a small human, could make a difference against the universe's deadliest forces. Oblivion nudged him again, prompting Kale to climb back onto his massive back. The dragon lifted into the air, soaring above the crater. Kale could see the horizon stretching far beyond, the alien warships gone but the shadows of new threats lurking in the distance. He clenched his fists, determination blazing. "We'll be ready," he whispered. "No matter what comes next." As they flew toward the distant settlements, Kale reflected on the journey. The dragons, the aliens, the destructive power of technology, each had tested him, each had demanded quick thinking, bravery, and clever action. And yet, he had risen to the challenge. Humans were fragile, yes, but their minds, hearts, and courage were weapons no creature could predict. Below, the crater settled into silence. Sparks flickered across twisted metal, the wind carrying dust and debris. Yet somewhere beneath the surface, faint tremors hinted at something still moving, something ancient, watching, learning. Kale's eyes narrowed. He knew instinctively that the galaxy was far from safe, and that their victories today were only temporary. Oblivion tilted his massive head, and Kale felt the dragon's awareness extend to the horizon. Together, they had faced the deadliest creatures the galaxy had to offer. Together they had survived. And together they would confront whatever came next. Kale reached out and touched Oblivion's scales again, a simple gesture of trust. "Thank you," he whispered, "for believing in me." The dragon rumbled softly, a vibration that Kale felt as both a promise and a warning. The universe was vast, dangerous, and full of mysteries. But as long as humans dared to act, dared to think, and dared to care, there would always be hope. High above the crater, the stars glittered like shards of crystal, endless and infinite. Kale's eyes caught a flicker on the horizon, too distant to identify, but moving fast, faster than anything he had seen before. Something new, something intelligent, and something far more dangerous than the ancient horror was coming. Kale's pulse quickened. He looked at Oblivion, gripping the dragon's scales tightly. "Whatever it is," he said, voice steady, "we'll face it together." The dragon's wings spread wide, and together, child and dragon soared into the night sky, heading toward the distant settlements, but aware that a new challenge awaited. The galaxy was vast, and human courage had just scratched the surface of its endless mysteries.